Welcome back to the Purple Political Breakdown. How's it going? Happy New Year's. We are in 2025. Now, the expectation for myself in this podcast is to try to produce more consistent episodes. I do apologize for the late episode for this one. We're trying to find a good balance, but there is so much to talk about in reference to what happened throughout the holidays. So let's dive right into it. We're going to talk about some domestic issues, some potential terrorism that has happened in the United States. We're going to talk about some international issues as well, and some stuff that I do think you guys may find interesting regarding certain diseases and regarding the infamous app that is TikTok. A lot of things that I think you guys should pay attention to. So let's dive right into it. Per usual, when I talk about politics, my goal is always political solutions without political bias. When I have these straightforward conversations or when I'm mediating conversation from two opposing views. Also, I try to give you information as factually as possible. I'll always let you know what my opinions are for a particular subject matter, but ultimately, I'm not trying to give you false or misleading or hyperbolic information. It's all perspective based terms of how you interpret the information, but factual, easy to understand stuff. It should be a must. I've criticized the United States of America quite frequently with how they are able to disseminate information to the general public. And in order to help me do that, of course, this podcast is featured by US Resist News, a nonprofit news service dedicated to truthful reporting in an age of disinformation. Learn more at www.usresistnews.org, and you'll be able to find my podcast and find some really great information. With that said, let's dive right into for today's topics. Now, if you guys didn't know, to kind of get the elephant out the room, Joe Biden has indicated that if he stayed in the race, he would have beaten Donald Trump. And apparently, he said this and some of his closest confidants as well. I will be very straightforward in my opinion. Ultimately, I don't think whoever went up against Donald Trump would have won. I think that MAGA's influence and the oppositional force towards the aftermath of COVID was far too powerful. And I do think the backing of the richest man in the world and the number one social media app in the world also helped influence a lot of people who don't know much about politics. So it didn't really matter to me. I think they were going to lose regardless. Now, if you're looking at the popular vote for Donald Trump and Kamala Harris, it was actually pretty close. But regardless, what matters most is affecting those swing states, and I don't think that was going to change even if Joe Biden was there. I mean, yeah, there might be some racist and sexist people out there, but I don't think that would have changed much, especially considering how badly the perception of Joe Biden was due to his old, incoherent rambling, especially in that presidential debate. That despite Joe Biden saying some good substantive stuff, the performance wasn't good. And Donald Trump was pretty piss poor there too, but it doesn't really matter when you're supporting Donald Trump, regardless of what he says. So I think this was kind of a waste of air. I don't even know why you bring this up. It shows a certain level of division in the Democrat Party that I don't think is very helpful moving forward. With that said, I do think that a lot of the support for MAGA and a lot of the support for Donald Trump, for some reason, or honestly, understandably so, stems from an anti elite kind of movement, right? The idea that you're going up against the deep state or the elites, you're going up against the people profiting off the people. Now it's kind of annoying when people say that they are anti elite and populist, so to speak, and then they support the richest man in the world, another millionaire, and one of the most successful, richest, and most powerful men in the world, in Donald Trump, who's also backed by a lot of millionaires and billionaires. So the deep state, the anti elite argument, it really doesn't make any sense to me. And matter of fact, the world's richest 500 people have recently surpassed $10 trillion of total, like, net worth, income. I don't even know what to say beyond that. Like, these people got richer. Elon Musk got richer because of the election. I hope people know this. So it's quite outstanding that people think that these elites and these very rich people are going to do what's in the best interest of the people. and they support them because they're supposed to be anti-elite. It's kind of like, you're looking this way and you're pointing out the problems with society. You're pointing out the corruption, but right behind you, you're filled with some of the most powerful people in the world. It's a kettle calling it's a pot calling a kettle black. Is that the term? I mean, hypocrisy is another good term, but it is what it is. We'll see how everything kind of turns out, but we are seeing a little bit of cracks between the MAGA and the individuals that support the elite as well. If you guys didn't know, there's a lots of controversy, a lot of conversation taking place on social media, specifically X, in regards to the H-1B visa program and its usage for the United States. We've had Vivek Ramaswamy and Elon Musk defending H-1B visas, saying that it's good for the United States in terms of bringing very skilled, high intelligent workers as immigrants to help and grow the country, of course. Now, of course, there was a MAGA oppositional side that said, no, we don't want immigrants at all, because obviously they think that immigrants are the root of all evil, because that's what MAGA has been proposing for the last 8 years. Donald Trump is saying all brown people suck, basically, and people are eating up, eating up a horse full of shit. So, when you do that, you can't be surprised that there's a lot of racist people in MAGA who don't want any immigrants at all. So to see Elon Musk and Vivek kind of defend the idea of H-1B visas, even though there's a foundational problem with some of the things they're saying, because they believe that only skilled immigrants should be in America. And I do think there's a valid argument that unskilled labor is also valuable to America. But trying to stay on topic, it was an interesting juxtaposition for anti-immigration versus pro, at the very least, elite immigration. Now, if you don't know what the H-1B program is, let me kind of read up the kind of summary of it. The H-1B program applies to employers seeking to hire non-immigrant aliens as workers in specialty occupations or as fashion models of distinguished merit and ability. Very simple. They want the best of the best. So this kind of weird situation, matter of fact, apparently I think Laura, I don't want to say a name and just like say it incorrectly, so I'm not going to say the name, but one of Donald Trump's most advocate supporters, she kind of, got full plastic surgery, and for the most part, we all think that she's kind of a side chick right now. She was arguing against this, and apparently she even lost her check mark because of Elon Musk. So very interesting battle between the two sides. But of course, the holy leader, the almighty ruler, Donald Trump, had to make a decision, saying that I've always liked the visas. I've always been in favor of the visas. That's why we have them. Now, this is what Donald Trump said about these visas in H-1B. With that said, he's also said this back in the day in the 2016 presidential debate, that he called H-1B visas very bad and unfair. So it's just another thing that we've seen when it comes to Donald Trump being a liar and a hypocrite. I mean, he will say whatever that gets him votes. He doesn't care about honesty and integrity. So with that said, now that he's changed his rhetoric about H-1B visas, it's very curious to see how MAGA responds. I haven't heard anything from MAGA. I don't think any of MAGA will ever disagree with Donald Trump because they're devout cultist followers. So even though I don't like Trump and what he represents and him as a person, if he says something good in the betterment of the country, such as H-1B visas, I at the very least can give a applaud. I can give a golf clap. I mean, we can all recognize that immigration is not a full-blown travesty, and it's not going to ruin the country because a couple more brown people come in there. So with that said, Donald Trump and the Elon and the Vivek and the MAGA and the H-1B saga continues. Now, there are a lot of new state laws that took into effect that I wanted everybody to be on the same page about. I know it's very hard to be informed with what state laws are going on and taking place because America makes it so hard to really know what's going on in the country. Unless you really fall into politics, unless you are crucially dedicated to figuring out what is going on, you will have no idea what laws are truly getting passed. This is a flaw that needs to be fixed, and the best way to fix it is having a mandatory amount of information being perpetuated into people's minds. Easy way to do that is social media, of course. I don't think that is very not surprising. I mean, Donald Trump's tweets go viral every single time they're posted, so make it very easy for people. Have a social media account, or at the very least a dedicated law passage, update on each phone that exists telling you this law is getting passed or this law is getting voted on. I think that should be all across the board. A mandatory update on social media and a mandatory update on your phone, kind of like Amber Alert, when a law is getting passed or a law is in deliberation to get passed to every American citizen. An American citizen should not go out of their way to find out what the hell is going on. You, the government, should make it very easy to inform the people. Again, criticize the government for this. Very easy fix. If we can get an Amber Alert the moment something bad happens, we can get an update the moment a law passes. So, with that said, at the very least, until that happens, you can come to my podcast and I'll tell you what I find out in terms of laws getting passed. In Delaware, there is a new mandate for Medicaid coverage for all abortion-related services. So, Medicaid coverage for abortion stuff is a good thing for people who are obviously advocate for pro-choice. Delaware also implementing stricter gun control measures. Pennsylvania is requiring Medicaid coverage for birthing and postpartum doulas. New York is introducing a paid prenatal care leave policy effective in 2025, allowing pregnant women 20 extra hours of paid sick leave for pregnancy care and abortions. I know people are going to like that. Connecticut is expanding mandatory sick leave policy to cover more employees by reducing the threshold for coverage. Washington is broadening paid sick leave policy to include more family members and emergency school or daycare closures. And minimum wage is getting increased to $16.66 an hour. Minimum wage, $16.66 in Washington. Kentucky is legalizing medical marijuana. Minnesota is enacting a ticketing fairness act requiring all-in pricing for tickets, so you know exactly what everything that's encompassing a ticket that you're buying for like shows and concerts and stuff like that. They are banning deceptive advertising and speculative pricing, and they're prohibiting bots from buying tickets to drive up costs. Really trying to get rid of those people who just like buy tickets and then sell it for a higher price. Shout out Taylor Swift. Florida is banning children under 14 from having social media account. Very interesting. I still don't buy the banning social media for young people. We'll go into that conversation a little deeper because Greenland's actually working on an app to help moderate social media usage for kids, and I think I can get behind something like that. We'll talk about that a little bit later. Florida is also requiring parental authorization for accounts of ages 14 and 15. I'm not mad at that. And the law is under a litigation not immediately enforceable regarding the social media stuff. California is enacting tougher penalties for retail theft and drug-related crimes. No, not mad at it. It depends on what those tougher penalties really mean. It allows easier aggregation of similar crimes across jurisdictions. Criminalizes breaking into a car even if unlocked. I mean, I think you're a criminal if you break into a car. 100%. I'm not going to lie. I do not feel sympathy for you. Prevents schools from requiring teachers to disclose students' LGBTQ identities to parents. Let me think about this one. So there's a pro and con to this conversation. It's very simple. I know people are going to go like, well, the parent should have the final say. Well, let's think beyond the initial scope and the very simplistic mindset a little bit. There are occasions, and I think we can all agree, I'm sure we watched a movie like this or a TV show like this, where there's a parent that is very abusive, that is very bad for the kid, that is ruining the kid's potential for a future because of how abusive or how strict they are. That's why having an outlet from a public education system could be valuable in saving that kid's life. We know those examples exist. So that's the pro for this type of circumstance. The con, obviously, is potentially leaving a parent out of the mix and the student trying to live like a double life, even when a parent is not overly strict and is just has like certain religious values, or at the very least it's not abusive by any means, but the kid is still just afraid to talk to their parents. So it gets kind of touchy right there. I think if you're going to have a law like this in place, to have another avenue to protect kids, because the most valuable asset in America and in any government and in any country is children. I think if you're gonna do this, you're gonna have to initiate a type of policy to not allow teachers to overstep their boundaries as well. You can have a any reporting from not going to teachers, but having paid medical psychiatric professionals in schools that can get reported to. I think that would work. I think that is fine. Teachers are not trained in being able to kind of raise kids like this, and some teachers have predisposed ideals that they think favor a type of moral response that may be overstepping a boundary. So I think if you're going to have a law in this place, you need this extra layer to ensure fairness across the board. And then they're raising the minimum wage to $16.50 in California. Iowa's adopting a 3.8 flat income tax, and Louisiana is adopting a 3% flat income tax. So if you're from any of those states that I just mentioned, now you're updated with some new state laws that are getting passed, that have been passed over the holidays, or at the very least is about to get passed in 2025. So, I like to break things up from domestic issues to international issues. So, let's start off with domestic stuff that is taking place in the United States. If you didn't know, homelessness in the US has reached the highest level. Sorry about that. I just ate some Five Guys combination with some water. Just messing up my stomach. You see how fat my cheeks are? Hey, I know I live in America. It's blissful, but man, I need to lock in. I think, you know what, to help deal with obesity, you need to have activities that are in close proximity of livable areas, especially livable areas where kids are around, with activities that are kind of conducive to some type of physical fun, right? There's a golf course near me. I'm never going to go to that golf course because it's for like more preppy rich individuals. It's like, and on top of like rent, it would have to be like a what do you call it? A country club membership, which is like $300+ a month. I'm not paying that. Who wants to pay that? Like golf is fun and all, but I'm not paying that. I'd rather go to the basketball court. And they took the basketball court and turned it into a tennis court. We have like 7 or 8 tennis courts in my neighborhood. That's called gentrification. I'm not okay with that. And we need some representation. You see this? This right here is meant for basketball playing. This is so disappointing. But with that said, let me drink some water. And let's continue. Homelessness in the US reached the highest level this year since the federal government began keeping records roughly 2 decades ago. The homelessness issue is so complicated, right? We know there's a level of different factors that play into it. There are people who are just druggies or people who don't want to work that become homeless. Like those examples obviously exist. There are people who have no skills and are not able to get work. Those people exist as well. There are people that are screwed by the system and have nowhere else to go and have given up on life. Uh, I always go back and forth in terms of the role and the responsibility of the government in protecting and providing for its people. Like, is it there to set a standard of peace, or is it there to create a better life for its people? There are so many layers in terms of the responsibility of a government. But if you're under the mindset that the government should play an active role to create a better life for all Americans, I think the idea of the US reaching its highest level of homelessness is a concern for you in particular. And I think that has to be there are probably some COVID factors, of course. Inflation going up is a factor as well. Homes prices going up is a factor as well. But I'm curious to everybody. This is more of a generalized question for everyone. When it comes to the homelessness issue, do you believe that the best way to solve it is creating shelters and homes for these people? It's creating programs to introduce them back into the workforce? Or do you believe that the best way to deal with this is creating more jobs and hoping these people enter the workforce on their own? It's really hard to truly say what is the best way to handle this. Of course, drugs being a part of the equation as well. But we know that at the very least, we don't want people to suffer. Very complicated scenario. And I would be very curious to see what the solution would be for Donald Trump to fix the homelessness issue. Now, if Donald Trump says that the homelessness issue is the fault of immigrants, then I've lost all faith in humanity. It's quite simple. Um, with that said, the biggest concern I have with this coming, well, one of the biggest concerns I have with this upcoming administration is their handling of vaccinations and the health of Americans moving forward. Because there's a couple of viruses that are taking place that are going around that I do think that needs to be paid attention to. One genetic analysis of the bird flu virus in a Louisiana patient showed that the virus had mutated during infection to become more transmissible to humans. Similar changes seen in a patient in British Columbia. So, bird flu is becoming a little bit more dangerous. Matter of fact, a doctor, her name is Dr. Leanna Wen, emphasized the need for proactive measures against bird flu, drawing lessons from the COVID-19 pandemic. So, with that said, if this mutation becomes a big problem and it starts spreading like wildfire, and we have certain professionals saying that we should have preemptive measures to be prepared for a potential outbreak, my concern comes when we have someone like Robert F. Kennedy who is anti-vax, let's be very clear, and he won't be able to respond to a situation like this appropriately. He's going to believe that vaccines are not the solution, and he's going to, I don't even know what a solution is going to be. Eat healthier food and work out. Hopefully that virus won't kill a bunch of people. So I'm a bit concerned on the response from the MAGA administration for potential outbreak. Not only is bird flu a problem, but the norovirus cases, norovirus, let me explain, is a highly contagious virus and the leading cause of foodborne illness in the United States. Some of the cases for norovirus have been rising in the United States as well. So it's not looking good, and it's kind of crazy. I've been talking to quite a few people, some friends, some hookups, and I've been talking to them, and a lot of them keep on telling me, I feel sick. Now, of course, if you're talking to a girl and they say they feel sick, it could be one of two things. It could be they're actually sick, or it could be the second thing, whereas I don't want to hang out with you, so I'm going to pretend that I'm sick. Either or, that could happen. But what we do know for a fact that even people that I know that's not the case are getting sick. So norovirus, bird flu, and an RFK Jr. administration, there's pause for concern there. I'm just saying. Let's talk about his leader, his supreme commander, the almighty Donald Trump. Donald Trump has actually asked the Supreme Court to pause upcoming January 19 deadline requiring TikTok to be divested or face a US ban. Because, let's be honest, Donald Trump likes TikTok. TikTok and social media had a huge influence in him getting elected. So Donald Trump is telling his underlings to, I want TikTok to stay. This is really going to test the powers of Donald Trump. I mean, another thing that tests the powers of Donald Trump is him endorsing Mike Johnson, who was not a very favorable major speaker in the House, but he got reelected. He got enough votes, just barely, but he did. This is another test for the Republicans that make up the U.S. government right now. They control the Senate, the House, the executive branch, and the Supreme Court. Will they defy Donald Trump? Now, Donald Trump could change his mind. It's very possible. But I'm very curious to see what happens here. With that said, there are some states that are still very much against TikTok. Apparently, TikTok has long known it had video live streams problems, encouraging sexual content that exploits children and turned a blind eye. This is an allegation proposed by the state of Utah in a lawsuit against TikTok. So some states and some Republicans are definitely still not in favor of TikTok, but it's very interesting that there was not a lot of right-wing reports regarding this state of Utah lawsuit because after Donald Trump said that he kind of wants to pause the deadline. I'm going to pay a lot of attention to this, of course, not only because I have a lot of social media accounts on TikTok, but also because I'm curious on the response. Let me ask you, MAGA, now that Donald Trump has very much indicated that he wants to extend the usage of TikTok, that he likes TikTok, so to speak, what should MAGA do? What should the Republicans do? Should TikTok disappear despite Donald Trump basically saying that I want it to stay? I'm very curious on the response. But there is more to talk about Donald Trump because there are things that have been taking place before the presidential election that I'm sure everybody wanted to brush under the rug. They wanted things that are very, you know, potential attacks on the president, as Piers Morgan says, because he's a bot, that they want to disappear. They thought it was going to disappear once he got immunity. Well, Donald Trump, it seems like that is not the case. These are just not going to disappear. Because apparently, E. Jean Carroll, I'm sure you guys know that name if you've been following politics, who was found to have been sexually assaulted and defamed by Donald Trump, is expected to pursue an $88.3 million judgment against the presidential elect following a New York Court of Appeals ruling that rejected the Donald Trump team's appeal of this case. The court upheld prior rulings allowing testimony from two other women alleging sexual harassment by Trump and the inclusion of the Access Hollywood tape as evidence. Carroll was awarded $5 million for the assault case and an additional $83.3 million for defamation in May 2024. The appeals court decision enables Carroll to collect the judgment even after Trump's January 20 inauguration, potentially causing political embarrassment. The ruling aligns with a precedent that lawsuits unrelated to presidential duties can proceed against sitting presidents as established in the 1997 Paula Jones case against Bill Clinton. Trump may appeal the decision to the Supreme Court. I'm sure he's going to. And Carroll's attorney expressed satisfaction with the ruling, while Trump's spokesperson called this a witch hunt because that's all they do. They just say everybody's just coming for me, not taking accountability of one's actions. So, with that said, it's going to be very interesting to see how this takes place. Now, of course, this is going to be appealed again, and because Donald Trump thinks he's above the law, he's going to assume that it's going to be swept under the rug. But if this actually gets pushed through, it's basically going to convict Donald Trump of the actions that he did. And it's going to be a very embarrassing loss on Donald Trump's record for basically losing a sexual assault and defamation case against this woman. Apparently, when it comes down to it, some other stuff, in regards to the Stormy Daniels stuff. So this was interesting as well. In a surprising development, because of course we addressed the Eugene Carroll. So more than likely, he's going to have to pay that money unless he appeals again to the Supreme Court. We go to the next court case, the Stormy Daniels hush money case. In a surprising development, a judge has set presidential-elect Donald Trump's sentencing in his hush money criminal case for January 10th, just over a week before he is due to return to the White House. Manhattan Judge Juan M. Merchan indicated that Trump would receive an unconditional discharge, meaning the conviction stands but without jail time, a fine, or probation. Trump can appear virtually for sentencing. Merchant rejected Trump's push to dismiss the verdict on presidential immunity grounds, emphasizing the need to bring finality to the matter and uphold the principle that no one is above the law. So, to make this very clear for people, based on what this says, the hush money case, Donald Trump will more than likely be convicted if everything kind of goes through. And if he's convicted, he'll be a convicted criminal as our president, but he will get no punishment. It's a weird situation, but not only is there a chance that our president will be a convicted criminal for the hush money case with a porn star, but he's also going to have a sexual assault allegation or a sexual assault and defamation suit against E. Jean Carroll. Will MAGA care? Well, let me ask you, if he's guilty for both and he's basically tried, regardless of being president, MAGA, do you care? I doubt it, because you guys have no integrity. But we move. Um, so another thing that was a very important thing to talk about in regards to Donald Trump is one of his or his, I think this will be his border czar, so to speak, Tom Homan, basically talking about immigration and deportation, saying that families could choose to stay together during deportations or leave children in the U.S. relatives. He is very much advocating for the idea that he's deporting a lot of people, and he will be willing to deport these people with their children who were born in the United States. Now, if they want to stay with other relatives, that's fine. But hey, man, it doesn't matter. I'll send you all across the country. You brown, you out of town. That'd be hilarious if Tom says that. If you are brown, you're out of town. And then we get a bunch of MAGA people and people in the KKK. If you are brown, you're out of town. Hey, man, that's tough. Um, but you know what? A very interesting thing in kind of connection to like the immigration stuff. Well, I'll save that for later because in regards Mexico and Honduras, because both of them have very strong opinions in regards to immigration and are preparing for a mass deportation that may take place when Donald Trump becomes the official president of the United States. But that said, let's kind of come full circle and let's kind of come together because regardless of how terrible the MAGA administration and Donald Trump is, we can all at the very least say that he is not as bad as potential threats to our country, terrorists that should be put down. Because during the holidays, there were a couple of things that happened. At least 15 people were killed and 30 injured when Shamsud Din Jabbar, a U.S. Army veteran, intentionally drove a pickup truck through a crowd of New Orleans, Bourbon Street during New Year Eve's festivities. The attack, described as an act of terrorism, ended with a Jabbar hit being killed in a shootout with police. Apparently, he was flying an ISIS flag in the truck, and apparently he was all over ISIS stuff on social media. This was a very terrible day. It's so unfortunate that the holidays, the moment of time where we should be able to come together and have a good time for the most part, for the people who want to, are used as prime targets for these disgusting pieces of garbage like this guy who want to make an example, who want to prove a point. It's disgusting. Now, I want to be very clear, and I know this happens, but I'm going to make this point so we all are on the same page. Do not use this as a catalyst to start hating all Muslims, but definitely use this as a means to come together as a unified force against those who want to threaten the people of America. You know, I think we should be able to get on the same page with people like this. And apparently, they're trying to see if there's a connection with this and the incident that happened with the cyber truck that exploded, which killed the driver and injured 7 others that happened outside the Trump Hotel. Now, we don't know who did this exactly. Well, from when I'm kind of reporting on this, I'm not sure who did this, but again, terrible situations taking place that we should all be against. We should all be against political violence. We should all be against international and domestic terrorism to the country that is America. And we should all be against all these activities that are against what America truly is. Moving forward, there is a big conversation that has taken place in regards to legacy admissions. So, I should have mentioned this Louisiana health thing when I was talking about COVID, but we'll kind of connect those two things in a bit. But there is a conversation because of what happened with affirmative action that critics argue that if race cannot be offered as an advantage to get put into college, legacy status for children of wealthy alumni should not be allowed either. Several states already have banned the practice, such as Virginia, Illinois, Maryland, and California, where a new law will be taking effect, I think, for California in 2025. There definitely needs to be a conversation of legacy admissions. I mean, if you're a rich alumni with a lot of wealth, I see the appeal for like appealing to these alumni because they may donate a lot of money to the colleges. Like there's a more of an incentive to help these people because there's an monetary incentive potentially or a clout-based incentive potentially. So these are all just benefits for the country. There's really no technical benefit for allowing people based off affirmative action other than like affording the unfortunate opportunity that could be fruitful in the end. So the cost risk analysis for the two things are very different, but based off the principle of both of them for like giving people the ability to become college students, I do think that there's a valid discussion that legacy emissions are very much unfair, similar to the principle of affirmative action, right? So what do we care about more, the cost and the benefits to the institution that is these universities and these colleges, or the futures of the youth? There should be an obvious answer to that question. And if you are hesitating, then I see where your priorities are. The advantage, the thing we should always care about most. What I said earlier in the podcast, the number one asset in any country, especially America, should always be the youth. Number one. So I definitely see the argument against this. Now, I don't know. This may be a longer conversation for a different day because of a journal about Biden's administration handlings of dissenting views regarding the lab leak theory of COVID-19's origins. There's no actual evidence of the lab leak theory, but centering it is also a very interesting conversation because there's pros and cons to it, right? Pros obvious or cons would be potentially limiting a free speech or trying to limiting a potential talking point that maybe warranted. It could be true and it's just centering the truth for the people. The con is it's not true and we're wasting resources on something that is objectively just not true. So it's like pros and cons, the balancing scale. I mean, if there's no evidence for the lab leak theory, then my opinion is very straightforward. Unless you got something, unless you got a little bit of evidence, I'm not wasting any resources on that. I know there could be exceptions of the exceptions of the exceptions. We all watch movies of that one exception where they couldn't find any substantive evidence, but they knew in their heart of hearts that they were right. Those do exist. They're very rare. Do not let TV and movies fool you in reality. They're very rare, very risky, and can be very damaging if it's not true. Let's be very clear on that. It's TV. So, it's such a tough one. But I'm sorry. I know people are going to hate this one, but I lean not wasting resources on things without evidence. I'm as simple as that. I think it's as simple as that. Now, I should have talked about this before, but Louisiana, apparently, health department has quietly implemented a policy barring, and this kind of comes full circle, which is why I should have talked about it earlier, of my concern for the MAGA administration regarding vaccine and these type of things, because the Louisiana's health department has quietly implemented a policy barring the promotion or advertisement of vaccines for flu, COVID-19, and Mpox, according to an investigative report by NPR, KFF Health News, and the WWNO. Employees reveal that the policy was introduced during meetings in late 2023, but is not formally documented. This change effectively prohibited press releases, public events, presentations, social media posts, and signage promoting vaccination, even at health department clinics. So, let's play the consistency game. So this is I always phrase the consistency game in a question because I'll be very simple on this. For me, if it's damaging to the public, then I do think there is a level of restriction and censorship that could be necessary. However, that is my opinion. And when it comes down to, preventing vaccinations and flus and stuff like that, I don't think there's a just cause for censorship for that stuff, but we can have that conversation. So the full circle question, let's playing the consistency game. For the free speech absolutists, for the people who believe that the government shouldn't have censored anything in regards to COVID and COVID misinformation and talking about potential vaccinations being harmful to people. For the people who did not like that type of censorship and thought it was bad for the country, are you going to keep the same energy knowing that the Louisiana Health Department was censoring any information in regards to vaccinations, promoting vaccinations against COVID, the flu, or Mpox, or any advertisements regarding vaccinations for those things? So the Louisiana Health Department was doing the same thing as the federal government, but on the opposite end. Are we going to keep the same energy? I just want to play the consistency game. So that's a proposed question. I guarantee someone in the comment section is no, because the federal government. So they're just gonna. The point is gonna be right here. It's gonna be flying right at their brain. It's almost here, and then they're gonna duck. It's gonna go right over, and they're gonna say some nonsense in the comment section. So we will see what happens. Now there's another thing that I personally like. Don't really understand a lot about this, I'll be honest, but I'll propose the information for a financial expert who may know more about this. So the Blockchain Association, the DeFi Education Fund, and the Texas Blockchain Council have filed a lawsuit challenging a new IRS rule requiring decentralized finance brokers to collect and report users' personal information and transaction details starting in 2027. Now, I could go for the pros and cons, but I don't really understand a lot about this because I don't really pay attention much about the different levels of finances, especially when it comes to cryptocurrency and kind of decentralized and centralized markets and the value of these in these DeFi protocols. And I don't really pay attention to that in depth, so I couldn't give a nuanced understanding of what actually is going on. But if you guys want to know, I'll read this off. So the IRS, critics argue that the rule imposes an undue burden on DeFi protocols, jeopardizing user privacy and potentially driving the industry offshore. The IRS defends the rule as a means to enhance tax compliance and address gaps in reporting on digital assets. However, the lawsuit contends that DeFi's decentralized nature, which lacks intermediaries like traditional brokers, makes such reporting impractical and a regulatory overreach. So I guess, from my understanding, when I'm reading this, the idea that because it's decentralized, it doesn't have a centralized way to kind of navigate all these different financial transactions. Because without it, being able to kind of regulate it is unjust. It's hard to really say, considering how much hackers have stolen so much money from cryptocurrency. The whole idea of cryptocurrency and I don't even want to say NFTs, but more like stable coins. The entire idea is that it's going to provide a way for income to flow in a more natural format without any kind of centralized kind of bank, a centralized currency, a way to revolutionize finances and money distribution. But without that centralized part, so much could go wrong. Without a stable monetary system, so much can go wrong. So, very hard to say. Moving forward, President Joe Biden announced a nearly $2.5 billion weapon package for Ukraine to bolster its defense against Russia before Trump takes office, in the fear that Trump is obviously going to side with Russia. They're just preparing for the worst. I know some people don't like it, and this is not really funds. It's more like weapons and, stuff that we're not using. So just weapons package. Calm down. Weapons package. Now, I know you guys, all right, if some of you guys follow sports, right? I follow sports quite intensively. I follow the NFL. I have my NFL award winners. I have the people that I think are going to become the MVP. I've been following the NBA as well. If you think wrestling is a sport too, I follow that too. There's been a lot of things that are happening for stars in regards to break-ins, and it's kind of wild. And we thought Ricky Pearsall getting pulled up and shot was wild. After that, we had stars like Mahomes, Luka, Travis Kelce, and Joe Burrow Always break-ins, people stealing their stuff. So apparently, the FBI has issued a warning to professional sports leagues, including the NFL and NBA, about organized crime groups targeting athletes' homes for burglaries. These groups are drawn to athletes due to the perception of high value possessions. I mean, they're very rich, so not surprising. Some break-in occurs when athletes are away for games. The FBI noted the organized theft groups, often from South America, use social media and publicly available information to track athletes' movements. They employ advanced technologies such as Wi-Fi jammers and tools that bypass security systems, allowing for quick and discreet burglaries. All I'm going to say, if you're an athlete, if you're very rich, you may have a security system. But you know what you may need as well? You may need to get some dogs, you know what I'm saying? You may need to get some dogs, you feel me? Some dogs. Yeah, like, you need to up that security with something a little bit something a little bit more living. So yeah. So apparently there's people targeting athletes right now, and that is disgusting. You know, these people are very rich. Indeed they are. Stealing their possessions while they're not there is disgusting behavior. Disgusting. Now, all right, so let's proceed. Some other stuff. Apparently, there's a new group of women who are basically doing the same thing men do. They're just copying men. How pathetic. Creating something called the Femosphere. So they are involuntarily just feminine people who believe in like the traditional bullshit, basically that stuff. Um, so the femosphere is a thing that is rising, apparently. Also, apparently, drug makers are planning to raise U.S. prices on at least 250 branded medication, including Pfizer and Paxlovid and some other drugs. So we are not okay with that one. You know what was a really weird thing to see? Oh, another thing that I kind of quick news. The U.S. Surgeon General Vivek Murthy, not Ramaswamy, Murthy, called for cancer warning labels on alcohol, stating that 2 alcoholic drinks a day increases the risk for 7 types of cancer, including breast and liver cancer. So if you drink 2 bottles a day, you have a increased chance of getting cancer. So chill out. I'm okay with this. I do think that type of warning for people helps because people are don't use this sense commonly. You know what I'm saying? This is what I wanted to talk about for the last thing regarding domestic issues because this is fascinating to me. You know, basically every podcast episode, I have spoken in depth on the usage of AI and how AI is changing society moving forward. So apparently, Meta platforms, Facebook, plans to integrate artificial intelligent powered user profiles across Facebook and its other social media platforms, which is like Instagram, right? So the idea is it's going to have social media accounts 100% ran by AI. Oh, it's getting shaky, ladies and gentlemen. It is getting shaky. Because not only do we have AI characters that people can pretend to talk to, but now on a social media platform, you can befriend AI pretending to be human. Oh my goodness. Do people not see the damage? Like, what is the purpose? This doesn't have any good purpose other than gaining more information on training AI bots. The only reason why you would do this is to train AI bots or securely modern what am I trying to say? Securely moderate what people are doing. There is no usage for AI bots, artificial intelligent powered user profiles. There's no reason for that. We already have character.ai, which doesn't make sense to me. There's no reason we should have that either. We should not have characters pretending like AI powered characters that people could talk to. Like there is no value to this stuff. We are slowly and steadily really ruining society with all this AI pretending to be human stuff. It's getting very ridiculous. Absolutely. And the amount of examples where AI caused people's death or convinced people to cause harm are happening. Nobody's talking about it. And it's getting kind of wild. Because, of course, the things to talk about are Luigi being a scumbag and the left defending him. We got to talk about that. We got to talk about the terrorist attacks that are taking place in the United States. Of course. We got to talk about the international wars. Of course. We got to talk about Donald Trump being the worst president of all humankind. Of course. We also got to talk about AI. We got to talk about AI because AI will change humanity moving forward. And I'm not one of those AI crackheads that think that any AI is the future of Skynet. No. I am someone who is very much intertwined with using AI, who has worked with AI, and who following a lot of AI cases, and have noted we should have limitations and strong regulation for AI. If I'm the only one saying this, that is a problem. That is a problem. And I guess I gotta make some videos about it. I guess I do. I have to make some videos about all the things that AI have been doing recently. I'll probably make a video on my YouTube channel. But I will make this in a short clip. I'll make this right here in the podcast episode. Post it and I'll promote it because I do think this conversation needs to be active and it needs to be aggressive. I want people to focus on a lot of political issues, and I talk about a lot of different things. But something that is not being talked about enough on the left and the right is the usage of AI. The fact that AI have caused people to take their lives. The fact that AI has convinced people to do harm to others. The fact that AI was used to create nude images of classmates of high school students. And the fact that we are now trying to move in a direction with Meta trying to create AI profiles that people can befriend and talk to. AI is the future of humanity and it will bring us to the next stratosphere. But if we do not have proper regulation on AI's evolution and how AI impacts people, this will be no different to a more extreme extent with how social media has harmed the people and the youth. And this will be way worse because it will be able to evolve and play into the worst parts of humanity and potentially be all over the world. It won't be something that you can escape like social media and turning off the internet. No, it could be everywhere. So I wanted to make this clip to be very simple. We gotta start. In addition to all the political conversations we have to start having conversations on the impact and the growth of AI. So I'm gonna create that as a clip and make sure I'm gonna cut that stuff up and I'm gonna make sure that thing gets posted and pushed because I don't hear anybody talking about the usage of AI. And I like AI. I don't want to be one of those guys. I want to repeat that. I think AI is great. But we got to slow our roll a little bit. All right, let's talk about some of the international issues that are taking place as well. So, if you guys don't know, Azerbaijan's president, Elon Aliyev, accused Russia of accidentally shooting down a passenger airline that crashed into Kazakhstan on Christmas Day, killing 38 people. Apparently, Russia was struck by a grounded fire over Russia and disabled the electronic wire, rendering it uncontrollable. Apparently, Vladimir Putin apologized for it, calling it a tragic incident. So, very surface level, didn't really mean much, and there's an investigation going on with it as well. Chinese hackers accessed U.S. Treasury Department workstations and unclassified documents by exploiting a third-party software provider, Beyond Trust. The breach was discovered on December 8th when Beyond Trust reported the hackers stole a key used to secure a cloud-based technical support service, allowing them to bypass security and gain remote access. The Treasury Department stated that there is no evidence that the hackers retained access to its systems or data. The breach is under investigation as a major cybersecurity incident, with the department collaborating with the FBI, the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, and others. China denied any allegations regarding it. You know what's interesting now that I see this? Um, One that nobody knows about this. Again, the ability to inform the people about things that happen is disgusting. It's not effective and efficient. But you know what's interesting about this? The interesting part about this is that I know there was a conversation taking place regarding creating a whole cloud called Project Texas, I believe, which will be controlled by the United States, having only the United States TikTok data. I wonder if there is a legit argument that can be made that TikTok could still have certain keys and codes, allowing Chinese hackers to still access the data and access it in a very nuanced and secretive manner. I wonder if that can be argued. I don't know the extent of this. Of course, I'm not a cybersecurity nerd, but it's very interesting, of course. We definitely got to pay attention to what our enemies are doing. So, I mentioned earlier in regards to immigration and how some of the other countries are reacting to the potential mass deportation that may take place in America. So, apparently, Mexico is preparing for a potential surge in deportations of Mexican citizens from the United States under presidential elect Donald Trump. Baja, California Governor Marina del Pilar Avila Almada announced plans to open 25 new shelters across Mexico, each with a 500-person capacity to accommodate those deported after January 20th. So, seems like they're trying to be prepared to deal with all the potential deportations. The shelters will house a lot of different people, men, women, unaccompanied children will be, and families will be in like separate shelters and focused on respecting their human rights as well. And another part about it was in regards to Honduras. Honduras president Xiomara Castros have made some comments regarding the threat to deport all these people, and she said she will stop cooperating with the United States military, following through on a promised mass deportation from Donald Trump. She actually said, quote, faced with a hostile attitude of mass expulsion of our brothers, we would have to consider a change of our cooperation policies with the United States, especially in the military realm. So a lot of countries, especially in our southern border and moving forward in South America, definitely won't be happy on the potential mass deportation that could potentially take place. The United States has also, not immigration related, but this is related to Iran, and Russia. Apparently, they are imposing sanctions on both of these countries for allegedly attempting to interfere in the 2024 U.S. election. The sanctioned entities include a subsidiary of Iran's Revolutionary Guard Corps and a Russian organization linked to the GRU, Russia's military intelligence agency. These groups are accused of using disinformation campaigns, including AI-generated deepfakes, to influence voters and incite socio-political tensions. I'm sure you guys heard throughout the election of both the left and the right having, some false information getting perpetuated from these foreign invaders trying to influence the election. So, I mean, I think they won. If I'm Russia and if I'm Iran, the one person that I want to be president of the United States right now would be Donald Trump. So it seems like they succeeded. Some people may disagree, saying that, oh no, Donald Trump is gonna put his fist down and he's gonna put his foot down, he's gonna put his balls down and say that Putin and Iran need to be in place and whatever and whatever. All he wants to do is get out of wars, give Russia part of Ukraine, and I don't even know what he plans to do with Iran. So we shall see. The World Health Organization has renewed its call for China to share comprehensive data on the origins of COVID-19, emphasizing the importance of transparency for preventing future pandemics. I'm cool with that. What do I like most about conversations and information? Transparency. Love transparency. Transparency is so valuable in trying to have strong relationships. So, the World Health Organization, despite being criticized from Donald Trump saying that this was controlled by China, is actually making a stance against China, saying that we need more data regarding the origins of COVID-19. So it'll be interesting to see what takes place in regards to that. And the final thing that I wanted to talk about, in kind of relation to what I was referencing earlier in regards to social media, is that Greece plans to introduce a government operated app called Kids Wallet in March 2025 to enhance parental control over children's mobile device usage and combat extensive internet exposure amongst youth. I was thinking about this and I was thinking about, am I on board? And do I like the idea? Yes, I like the idea. I think that parents should have a large understanding of what the kids are consuming and what the kids are doing. Regardless of how smart or dumb certain parents are, one thing we all can recognize is that for the most part, parents are still smarter, more mature, and more experienced than their child. So expecting a child to understand and contextualize things that they perceive on the internet better than an adult is fool's gold. Can it happen? Sure, but I am not making laws and policies off of exceptions. That's just not happening. So with that said, I like the idea. And I do think this could be a gateway for the United States. Now, will the United States of America ever enact a policy like this on a federal scale? Hard to say. Hard to say. But could it be done at the state level? Possibly. Possibly. Very possibly. Very, very interesting to see. But with that said, that is all the news I have for today. Lot to talk about for today's podcast episode. We will be back on a future date. I'll try to find something a little bit more consistent and try to update people who are listening to the podcast as frequently as possible. Because I do think you guys need to be updated quite frequently on stuff that is taking place that you guys are not hearing about. Now, there's a lot of great sources out there. Some better than others. And I do think there's a level of ability to give out unbiased information without any opinions. But I'm not here to do that. I'm here to give you the factual information, but also tell you my opinion and try to have a nuance, contextualize, and diving into different perspectives that hopefully people can understand. Sometimes the news is bigger than the information. Sometimes it's how to understand what this information means, which is more valuable. So with that said, hope you guys enjoyed today's podcast episode. Rated 5 stars if you did. Hope you guys enjoyed. You have a good one. Take care. And peace.